Hey, welcome to, I can't remember the name of this channel. Charlie's Concussion Chats with Charlie, I think is what I called it. Um, like the brain power it would take to edit videos the way I used to when I was making movies is not something I'm going to be doing on this channel, where I'm going to be like cutting all these overlays and putting all the graphics on screen. I When you have a head injury like this, you learn to prioritize what is absolutely important to do with your brain that day. You've probably heard of the spoon theory. If you haven't looked up the spoon theory, then look it up. It's pretty handy. I only learned about it like maybe 3 weeks ago. So I won't define it, just look it up. That's what Google's for. Um, what I have decided though, so it's not like I just have 1 hour long episode where I talk about everything. I'm trying to break it down so you can look by subject. So you look under the thing and you're like, oh, here he's talking about wah 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 wah. So today I'm talking about swimming. Not what you thought I would say. So I want to introduce you to this really fun thing I bought. And no, I'm not, this is not a paid advertisement, but this is a whole lot of fun. This thing, this really cool swim bladder, represents a whole lot of fun I was going to have this summer. I am into open water distance swimming. It's one of my favorite things to do. And even though I live in Iowa, like where I used to live in Burlington, Vermont, of course, so much swimming. I could swim in Lake Champlain, did lots of lovely distance swims there. I'd also cross Champlain, go into the Adirondack Park, and do distance swims in mountain lakes. And so it was great. So open water distance swimming, also called wild swimming, is when you just go out into the open water, swim to point A to B. And one of my favorite things to do was to have a thing like this. So it's got dry storage inside, you roll it up, and then it's inflated, and then it attaches like to your waist. It's got a little attachment dealy here. So you attach it to your waist. I actually like to swim with it attached to my foot, with a stretchy like surfer's leash, because I don't like having something around my waist. It chafes. And also I don't do the crawl because of an old shoulder injury, so I can only do the breaststroke. So it doesn't bother me. But anyway, I'd been using just a plain old dry bag for my distance swims, but at the beginning of the summer, I got this, and I was so excited to use it. But then I got the concussion, and so I would drive down to the lake here called Lake McBride. It's like one of the few lakes here that doesn't get all the crazy amounts of pollution that the state suffers from all the agriculture runoff. And so I would drive down to the lake. I would like get this thing out of the car, and then I'd just be like, who am I kidding? Like, I'm so exhausted. I cannot do this. And so I would leave and come back home. So I have not used this once. And since my injury, I have not swam. I've not done a single open water distance swim. And today, what I did go to the pool once, like with my kids. My kids are in their 20s. We live in the same town. So once I went to a local indoor pool, and just like in the exercise kind of pool, where usually you see a whole bunch of older people floating around, I was one of those older people floating around using the dumbbells. So I wasn't swimming at all. I was just sort of treading water with these dumbbells, just checking it out. And we had a great time, but like after that, I was so exhausted. I think it was like a 2-day recovery where I was taking like 4-hour naps in the middle of the day just to try to keep up with things. So this morning though, I woke up and I was like, you know what? I feel like swimming. And so I went to the pool and I swam laps for about 40 minutes, just taking it easy. And I was feeling really good, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. This is amazing. But of course, I was aware that there's fluorescent lights above me, and that's sort of like my arch nemesis. And so I was like, okay, I shouldn't stay here for much more than 30 minutes. And when I rolled onto my back to, do the backstroke thing. About halfway on my first lap on my back or so, I started to get seriously nauseated. And I was like, oh, great, what is this? And so I kept swimming, swam through it. But at the same time, I felt nauseous, and I still feel nauseous right now, to where I could like maybe hang out close to the restroom. And you might be looking at this, and if you haven't had a concussion or a traumatic brain injury and you're watching this, you're like, dude, you look fine. Why are you being so dramatic? Like, if you felt nauseous, you wouldn't be able to record this. Well, all I can say is like, when you have symptoms every single day for 7 months, you learn to live with it. I don't mean you learn to thrive with it, but it's like, can you really look at someone and tell if they're in chronic pain? No, not always. At one time, I worked for a man who had grown up with polio, and most of his spine was fused. And he was in his 60s, and he was in constant pain all day long. I mean, his back was just a mess. But, he carried on conversations. He had learned to find a way to normalize the pain to a level, but it still wears you down. So, I thought I would wait till I didn't feel nauseated to make this recording, but I'm like, no, I'm just going to record it. So, so I swam a little bit more, and then I was like, okay, I swam my 40. I'm definitely getting out of the water now. And so there's no way to know for sure if it was the lights up above or something happened when I rolled onto my back, but I know it started as soon as I rolled onto my back. And that's just how it goes. Like, there's some times where something becomes a trigger. And so the vestibular system is the part of the brain, the phrase that we use to describe the part of the brain that has to do with balance. I think of it as like being a gyroscope. In the top of any spaceship, there is a gyroscope that helps the systems figure out how to keep the system, how to keep the rocket flying straight. And so there's some things that make the vestibular system and the gyroscope kind of go wonky and off kilter. And so all I know is that since my concussion, there's been a lot of vestibular imbalancing going on. There have been some treatments that I'll talk about in later episodes that have absolutely helped with that. But all I know is, for some reason, I just discovered today that rolling onto my back and swimming on my back, not so great. I remember I was looking up at the lines on the ceiling, when you're swimming laps on your back. If it's a nicer facility, they've got lines on the ceiling so you can tell, am I in line? And it was pretty comical, because when I was looking up, the whole room then off to my peripheral vision felt sideways. Everything was off kilter. And so I was losing my perspective of which direction I was going in. And I always felt like I was heading off in one direction, like almost 20 degrees off from the angle I meant to be going. And then I would stop and I'd look around and I'd be like, no, I'm actually swimming in a straight line, but it felt like I was swimming at an angle. And later on, I'll do an episode about what it's like to ride a bicycle, because that's hilarious. And it's very similar to this. So anyway, something happened. It made me go off to the side, and I feel pretty nauseous. But I'm starting a new career that I'll talk about later that does not involve being in an office, not involve being around bright lights, and I've got a meeting that I have to get to. So I've got to get my act together and get focused. But just one other thing I want to share about the balance stuff is, so after I gotten let's say a flare up, whatever this is, sometimes I call it a flare up, something activated, uncomfortableness in the vestibular system, and the light. So I have the curtain pulled over just a little bit to let some light in so you can see me. But even just this gray Iowa City afternoon light, that hurts my eyes extra, because what happens is when one part of your brain that is injured, gets overloaded through trying to maintain balance, for example, while swimming on your back, then what happens, I picture almost like a little dude goes inside my brain, and they go, oh, this part of the brain working on balance is overloaded. To help this part of the brain that's overloaded, let's start shutting off other switches so there's more energy to work on balance. And so, oh, here's the visual system, here's the visual cortex. Let's turn off the ability to receive light without it hurting. So they turn off that. And then, oh, speech is taking a lot of work. Let's turn off that switch. Oh, short-term memory, let's turn that off. And so that's where I'm at right now. And so I'm going to be shutting this curtain as soon as this is over. What else was I going to say? So yeah, this is, I'm glad I'm recording because this is exactly what it's like when I'm in the middle of a flare-up thing. Like, hard to focus on what I was saying. What was I going to say? Showers. I was going to talk about showers. So I got home from the pool and I hopped in the shower, and something I've done almost every time I've been in the shower since June 23rd is I always have to have 3 points of contact. So my feet count as 2. I'm never standing on 1 foot in the shower. So I'm standing on 2 feet, but what I have found is I have to have a hand on the wall of the shower, or my leaning so my shoulder is against the shower, or like I'll sometimes lean and my head will be against the wall. But something has to touch the sides or I can start to lose my balance. And so I learned this the hard way early on by nearly falling over in the shower many times. And so, yeah, that's, so like if I'm getting the shampoo, I need 2 hands to do the shampoo, then I'm leaning against the shower. So I have 3 points of contact. Because, when water gets in the eyes, especially, and you're like, close your eyes, that can cause me to lose my balance. So that's really interesting stuff. And it's stuff that like I barely even think about because I've been doing it for so long now. It's just become habitual, but it is something that I'm hoping upcoming treatments can help me get past. And just one thing I want to stress though is like, I'm really lucky. Most people who I've conversed with on like a online support group who have, MTBI, minor or major traumatic brain injury, or if they're just calling it post-concussion syndrome, honestly, most people have it way worse than I do. I still consider myself highly functional. I can make a video like this. I can at least sustain some light. There's a lot of people who don't go outside at all. It's just not an option for them. And there's not a lot of great treatment options that maybe they have access to or they don't have access to. So even though I have challenges and struggles, I did still find a great treatment early on, which I think was absolutely key to me being able to even do what I'm doing now or to pursue this new career that I'm working on. But then again, like I haven't worked in 3 months and I've been unemployed and there's been no money coming in and I've had to beg, borrow, and steal from family to help me out. And I'm lucky that I had that. And I also took out credit cards, to be blunt. That's paying for a lot of this too. So anyway, yeah, that's the deal. So I'm trying to keep these super short. I don't know if 13 minutes is short or 14 minutes is short, but that's what you got. And I gotta say, after being, again, a video editor for the last 10 years, it's such a relief to do one-take videos, no editing. Because if I had to edit this, if I was gonna go in and correct sound and do color grading and do cuts and do an intro and an outro and drop in music, like none of this would happen. Like that would take so much executive functioning. I know that it would put me out of commission like for like 2 or 3 hours after that. So we're just keeping it super simple here. Okay, that's it. Bye.